Welcome to my 205th video on my work with OO gauge. This part will deal with recent work with Hornby Dublo and Wrenn 264 tank engines, 3-rail and 2-rail, with extensive servicing including re-magnetizing and replacing the balls in the motor bearings and also repainting and decaling. 3 models will be involved in this process: the original Dublo 3-rail 264 tank that I acquired a while ago and to which I fitted a new body finished in LMS Online black livery, and 2 others that I acquired recently, another Dublo 3-rail and a Wren 2-rail. By the end of the exercise, hopefully they'll all actually be running satisfactorily, and they'll all be running as LMS engines with different bodies to the ones that they started with. I knew that I had the 2 new 264 tank models that I wanted to work on, but first I wanted to see about my original 264 tank, as that hadn't been running at all well the last time I tried to use it. I was going to try to bring my 264 tank out of... whoops, I'm backwards. Out of the... Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, points. We need this point. We need that point set so as not to pass power to the station, because I'm passing power to the station at the moment. So I'm trying to power 2 locos, which of course I don't want. I'd set the power to power the 264, but I'd forgotten that the last work I was doing was on the station, so I had power passing to the station. So let's try him again. And he's not moving at all. Well, the reason I'm bringing him out is because I think he needs a service. Yeah. He severely does, doesn't he? I had him sort of going before, but I can barely get him going at all now. Well, it doesn't help that he's passing over points, but still, I mean, he should do better than this. Nope. He's really not going anymore. So I could barely get that one to run at all when I tried it. I got it onto the bench to have another go at servicing it. The chassis came from a model that I bought on eBay UK as fully serviced and re-magnetized, but I've had constant problems getting any sort of decent performance out of it. It did run when I tested it with my bench controller, but not at all well. So I started to take it apart. You have to remove the front pony truck first from these, as the body retention screw is underneath the pony truck when the model's upside down in the cradle. Here I've removed the body retention screw, and you can see it in the tray behind, along with the pivot screw for the pony truck. And here's the chassis out of the body. I started by thoroughly cleaning the wheels and the centre rail pickup with electrical contact cleaner on cotton buds. That removed a fair amount of tarnish, but it didn't really improve things much. I have now acquired one of Ronald Dodd's magnetizers, as he has been selling them on eBay again recently. I thought that this would be worthwhile, as though I can always take models up to British model trains in Cambridge to get them re-magnetized, it's just much more convenient to be able to do it myself right on my workbench. That way I can go ahead and strip motors down without worrying about the need to fix the magnet afterwards. And just working on these tank engines this week, I've already used the magnetizer many times. Before magnetizing, of course, you need to check the polarity of the magnet. A compass is provided with the magnetizer when you buy it. The red arm points to the north, so as seen here, this is indicating that the north pole of the magnet is on the left side. I have already taken out the screw at the back and removed the clip that holds the back of the body so it won't rattle, as that clip would get in the way of fitting the magnet into the magnetizer. I wasn't too sure whether I should also remove the cross bolt that holds the side pieces onto the magnet. On the one hand, removing this certainly makes it easier to get the pieces of the magnetizer onto the sides with flexibility. On the other hand, it does mean that the side pieces aren't held firmly onto the magnet. It seemed to me that the center of the magnet poles, as indicated by the compass, went right through where the bolt was, so I removed it. Here you can see the compass again. To put the pieces of the magnetizer on exactly where the magnet points straight across, I would need to have the bolt removed. However, I checked Ronald Dodd's own demonstration video again afterwards, and he left the bolt in and just put the pieces of the magnetizer behind the bolt. You'd still need to remove the body clip to do that. I put the chassis into the magnetizer, as indicated by the compass, and re-magnetized it. However, the motor still didn't really run well after that. So I proceeded to strip down the chassis further. At least I wasn't afraid to do this now, as I had the magnetizer, so I could re-magnetize again afterwards. Here you can see that I've completely removed the magnet and the side pieces. I've removed the brush retainers and taken out the brushes, and I've unscrewed and removed the top bearing. Then I removed the armature. I checked that there were balls in both of the bearings. I cleaned the commutator. Then I comprehensively scooched out the whole chassis with sprayed electrical contact cleaner to remove as far as possible all traces of previous lubricant. I think that gummed up old lubricant was a major source of problems with this chassis. Once the chassis was dry again, I re-lubricated everything with fresh oil and grease as appropriate. I reassembled the motor and adjusted the top bearing. I find what seems to work best is screwing the top bearing down until it binds, and then backing it off half a turn and locking it in place with the nut. Finally, of course, I re-magnetized again, and then, when it seemed to run fairly okay on the bench, I took the chassis back to try on the tabletop. Well, here's the chassis of my original 264 tank engine running after I have repeatedly applied every possible servicing technique I can come up with. I stripped it completely down, sprayed the chassis out completely with contact cleaners, re-lubricated the chassis, cleaned the commutator, checked the bearings. They do have balls in them. I didn't change the balls. I've got some new balls coming, but at the moment I didn't change the balls. I left the balls that were in, but they definitely do have balls in. And I put some gear oil in the bearings, I adjusted the bearings, I re-magnetized it. Now that I finally got a magnetizer of my own, I actually re-magnetized it 3 times. I couldn't quite decide what the best way of magnetizing it was. So they always say you should magnetize things with the magnet in the motor, but it's kind of hard to magnetize this with the magnet in the motor. You pretty much at least have to take the cross bolt out, else you can't get the magnetizing piece. Well, you can only get the magnetizing pieces up against the very back of the magnet if you don't take the cross pieces out, the cross bolt out. Anyway, this is running at 50% now, which is definitely, oh, and of course I re-lubricated it after I re-lubricated all the axles and the motion and everything, and I checked the motion to make sure nothing was rubbing, straightened one rod a tiny bit that was maybe rubbing a bit against something. I can't see anything else to do. I've done everything I can. This is 50% power. I suppose that's not too bad. But then again, is it going to run this well when I put the body and the bogie and the pony truck back on? This is just the chassis with no bogie, no pony truck, nothing. Just the basic 6 wheels, 6 driving wheels. So I don't know. I've done everything I can in the way of servicing this, much of it more than once, and I've had trouble getting it to improve very much, frankly. Maybe reach for the controller here and stop it. There we go. Well, this is about the best I can get this one running. I've done a lot of servicing work on this. I've completely cleaned out the chassis and re-oiled it, had the motor totally apart. Re-magnetized it more than once in different ways. It's now running. This is 55%. The other one, I nipped the uncoupling piece off the front coupling because it kept hitting the points and things. I wonder if I shouldn't do the same for this. This isn't actually derailing because of the front coupling piece, but I noticed sparks going between the front, the uncoupling bar of the front coupling and the points occasionally. The problem is that front pony truck is not very firm, you know, it wobbles around, and when you've got that uncoupling bar sticking down from it, it's getting a little bit faster as it warms up. We could almost perhaps slow it down now. I just turned the power down to 50, from 55 to 50. So I've had a lot of trouble getting this to go decently. I mean, this was, when I bought the chassis of this, the body was separate. I've changed the body. But when I bought this chassis, it was sold as a fully serviced and remagnetized chassis. But I've had a heck of a time getting it to go decently. I spent a lot of time on it, servicing it, and as I say, now that I've got my own remagnetizer, I stripped it down completely and remagnetized it several times, basically because I had a bit of trouble getting the remagnetizer. It's hard to get remagnetizer onto the magnet when it's in the motor. Slow down even a bit further. Okay, so we're now down to 45. I guess there's some running in effect here. You know, we may be, for one thing, we may be bedding the brushes back down into the commutator. I cleaned the commutator, cleaned the brushes as well. I did not reface the brushes though. I cleaned them with electrical contact cleaner. I cleaned the commutator, but I did not reface the brushes, and maybe I should have. Mind you, they would have still, if I'd refaced them, they would have needed bedding in, right? So that's down to 45. Well, that's not too bad. Let's just hope it stays like this and doesn't fade again. Because quite honestly, it tended, after my first, the first time I got it running, when I first got the chassis, then I parked it in the engine shed for a while and it seemed to fade. Next time I brought it out the engine shed, it didn't run anywhere near so well. But I mean, it's only got new lubricant in now. I cleaned out all of the old lubricant. I cleaned the chassis right down bare with, you know, like completely stripping it down, and then, I didn't take the wheels off, but I took everything else off pretty much, and then completely scooched the thing out with contact cleaner to remove all the old lubricant, and then lubricated with new lubricant. Oops, and I just derailed, I think. Yes, the pony truck derailed. Well, I think I'm going to leave the pony truck's derailed. That's why it stopped. The pony truck's derailed and it's got stuck on the level crossing, but I think we'll leave it at that for now. So my original 264 tank was now running pretty much okay. I parked it back in the engine shed and turned to the new Dublo 264 tank that I had bought. When I tried this one on the tabletop, it actually ran at a good speed with less power than the previous one, but periodically it emitted a loud, grating, shrieking noise, which didn't seem at all healthy, so I got it onto the bench. Dublo only ever sold the 264 tank in BR-lined black livery so far as I'm aware, and that was how this one came. As before, I removed the pony truck and took out the body retaining screw. And here's the chassis out of the body. I was hoping that giving things a good lubrication would eliminate the shrieks, and that's often the case. Things will shriek just because some parts are dry, and a good lubrication will fix the problem. But not in this case. Even after my best attempts to lubricate everything, the periodic grating shrieks continued. It appeared that the noise was coming from the motor itself. And when I removed the top bearing, I found that there was no ball in it. There should be a small single steel ball in that hole in the bearing against which the top of the armature shaft will rest, but in this case, as you can see, there was just an empty hole. I removed the rest of the motor parts, brush retainers, brushes and springs, and the magnet side pieces and their cross-bolt and nut. The brushes weren't in very good shape. They were short, probably deliberately cut down, and their ends were crumbling. With everything removed, I checked the bottom bearing, and there was no ball in that either. So, like Goebbels in the old song, this chassis had no balls at all. As it happened, just before I discovered this, I had ordered some bearing balls on Amazon Canada, and they were due to be delivered later that day. Here are the balls that I got, just standard 1/16" chrome steel bearing balls. The nice thing for me about buying these is that they're a standard item, not specifically a Hornby Dublo spare, so I was able to source them in Canada for fast, free delivery. Getting Dublo spares and such things can be somewhat of a nightmare for me, as often I can't get what I need in Canada at all, and I have to buy from the UK, paying very high postage costs and waiting weeks for delivery. I picked out 2 of the new balls to use with the 264 chassis. Here you can see that I have put balls into both bearings. I did in hindsight make something of a mistake. The ball that I put into the top bearing went immediately right to the bottom of the hole without problems, but the ball in the bottom bearing didn't go well into the hole, and I had a heck of a time forcing that ball to bed down properly into the bottom of the hole, which it needs to do in order for the armature to fit properly with the commutator lined up with the brushes. In hindsight, I should have taken more trouble to thoroughly clean out the hole in the bottom bearing before inserting the ball. If I'd used lots of solvent and something like a pin to clean all old lubricant out of the hole, I'm sure I would have had an easier time, although it is rather difficult to get at that hole in the bottom there. Anyway, I did manage eventually to get the ball down into the hole and to get the motor reassembled, and then of course I re-magnetized again, and I tested this chassis on the tabletop. Okay, now this is the other 264 tank chassis that I have, and when I got this, it appeared I ran it with the body on, just the way it came initially, and again it was supposed to be a service running loco, and it did run quite well. It ran with 40% power, fairly smoothly, except that every so often it made a nasty sort of grating screech sound. So it would run sort of like this, but then every so often it goes sort of, which obviously didn't sound good. This is actually running at 50% now. We can perhaps turn it down to 40%. Okay, that's 40%. A little slow, but still moving fairly smoothly. Long story short, it turned out that what the problem was, I tried lubricating it, but that didn't help. Turned out what the problem was, there were no ball bearings at all in the bearings on the top and bottom of the armature. The 2 brass bearings are supposed to have balls in them, and neither of them did. No balls at all. So, fortunately, just before I discovered that, actually, I'd ordered some balls. At least you can order them as a standard thing, and you don't have to get them at all. I'm in Canada, which makes getting Hornby parts a real problem. You know, because if I want to order some brushes, the brushes maybe cost £4 or £5, but then it cost me £30–40 to get them shipped to Canada. So it's a bit problematical, and I do want to replace the brushes on this. The brushes are not in good shape. They were short. I think someone had cut them down short on purpose, but then the ends that were on the commutator were actually crumbling. I've swapped them round at the moment. I just flipped the ends round to put the other end that was in better shape against the commutator, but they're kind of short and crumbling at the other end, and so I'd really like to put new brushes in it, but I don't have any. I'm trying to see if I can get some in Canada without having to pay £30 or £40 to get them shipped from the UK. But at least this is now running, and of course it's been re-magnetized and everything, new bearing balls and re-magnetized, and it doesn't do any screeching now. I wouldn't call it a great runner even now, but this is the best I can do with it. It's sort of acceptable, I guess, that chassis. Now, it's not got its pony truck on, well, because for one thing you can't put the body on with the pony truck on. You've got to sort of put the body on first, then put the pony truck on, because when the pony truck's on you can't get at the body retention screw. Oh, we're getting some clock chiming now. So there you go. That's 264 tank chassis number 2. Now this is a Wren 264 tank, which I bought from Nigel with British Model Trains, and which he serviced. And he told me that he did spend some considerable time with it, fully servicing it and re-magnetizing it, because it took a bit of work to get it working fully and well. But I would assume that, since he's done all that work, I should not need to do any work on this chassis. The chassis of this will be very, very similar, and the body's basically the same type as well as the Dublo ones, except of course this is designed to run 2-rail, not 3-rail. So, give him some power. He's fairly fast. That's 50% power again, because Nigel said that he, reduced its power requirements quite a bit by servicing it. So that's 50% about on this one. I don't expect these old Wren and Dublo things to ever run with, well, I was going to say I don't expect it to run with 30% or whatever, although some do. My N2 runs with 30% actually, but anyway, so there you go. Now my plan is just to actually take this body and put it on that Dublo chassis, because I've already got a red Wren 2-rail 264 tank that I bought off Nigel's quite some while ago. It's not in quite such good condition as this one in terms of the body and paintwork and things. This one's very clean, but it works quite well. And I have a black LMS one in 3-rail, so I was going to put this on the chassis so I'd have a black and a red 3-rail one, and then put a black chassis on this so I'd have a black and a red Wren 2-rail one, although I have a couple of extra chassis, but they're in BR livery as they're Hornby bodies, and Hornby always sold them in black BR livery. So I'll have to refinish a black body to put it on this guy. But that's the plan, to put a refinished LMS black body on this guy and put this red body. All being well, we'll see. The best laid plans of meese and men, but it should work, because basically, they're essentially identical models, more or less, apart from the substitution of the side rail pickup instead of the center pickup. The body, chassis, motor design and everything, Wren just took over the Dublo tooling and used it, so it should work, this plan to swap the bodies around. Having got my second Dublo 264 tank chassis working okay, I now turned my attention to the Wren model. I bought this one from Nigel of British Model Trains. He told me that it wasn't running at all well when he got it, but he spent quite a bit of time fully servicing and re-magnetizing it, and he got it running nicely, so I wasn't expecting to need to do any servicing as such on this one. But I did remove the pony truck and I took off the body. This Wren version is essentially exactly the same model as the Dublo 264 tanks in almost every respect. When the Lyons brothers with Triang bought out Hornby, they made a deal with Wren, whereby Wren got Dublo parts in stock and tooling, and almost all of the loco models that Wren sold were based on these, with just 1 or 2 exceptions. Wren did paint the models differently, and in some cases they used slightly different materials or made minor adjustments to fix issues. For example, as seen in my recent videos parts 202 and 203, in the case of the 060 diesel shunters, Wren made their armatures slightly differently from Hornby, eliminating the problems that had often occurred with the armatures in the Dublo versions of that model. In this case, I didn't really see any significant differences between the Wren model and the Dublo model, except that the Wren model was finished in LMS Crimson livery, something that Hornby never did with this model. And also, of course, the Wren model was configured for 2-rail operation. Wren only sold their loco models in 2-rail versions, although since the chassis were produced from the Hornby Dublo tooling, the fittings for 3-rail operation were still present. My Wren 264T also came with tension lock couplings fitted. However, Wren did generally configure their models so that either tension lock or simplex couplings could be fitted. I already had a 2-rail 264T in LMS Crimson, which I bought from British Model Trains some time ago. So my plan was to use the LMS Crimson body from this one with the second 3-rail 264 tank chassis that I had, and then to mount a Dublo body refinished in LMS Black onto the 2-rail Wren chassis. So then I would have a red one and a black one in 2-rail and a red one and a black one in 3-rail. The cylinders of the Wren chassis were finished in plain black. The cylinders of the Dublo chassis were finished in line black. That wasn't really going to fit well with the Crimson body. I could have painted them plain black, but actually I decided to paint them crimson, using some Model Master British Crimson enamel into which I'd previously mixed some black to better match it with the LMS Crimson used by Hornby. On the other hand, I wanted to refinish a Dublo body in LMS unlined black to go on the Wren chassis. I tried painting over the side of the cab with Model Master's semi-gloss black enamel. I let that dry and checked the result. It wasn't looking good, so I gave up on that approach. I removed the black paint that I'd put onto the cab before it was able to cure fully. I decided that the best approach would be to spray paint the whole body black. But then I wanted to mask things that I didn't want to paint black. I could afford to be a little less than precise, as the main colour of the body was already black. I put a piece of white tack over the brass safety valves on top of the firebox, I masked the front and back buffer beams with Tamiya masking tape, and I used microscale micromask liquid masking medium painted onto the handrails. Once the paint on the cylinders dried, I fitted my second Dublo chassis into the Wren Crimson body. The fit was fine, as the two models were basically made from the same tooling. Here's that combination. I don't know, maybe I should have just painted the cylinders black, but this combination doesn't look too bad. I got this model onto my 3-rail tabletop for testing. Okay, so here we have the Wren, the quite clean Wren red body on the newer 3-rail chassis that I just put the balls into the bearings of and whatever. We'll see how he goes. There's one thing that worries me a little bit. Well, various things worry me, and I'm a bit given to worrying. The body adds a tremendous amount of weight. I think this Wren body, I didn't actually put them on scales, but I think, oh dear, I derailed. I think this Wren body is actually, where are we here? Are we railed properly? Sorry. Have I got that rail? No, I don't think I have. See, it's a fiddly business getting these railed with the pony truck and the bogie and everything. Oh, now I'm trying to... Oh, for goodness sake, and now the stupid phone is ringing. The heck with it. Let us try again. The Wren body, I think, weighs, if anything, more than the Hornby bodies. I don't know. In any case, always adding the body to these things adds a tremendous amount of weight. You know, the chassis is quite heavy in itself, but the body is even heavier. So they've got lots of weight. In some ways it's a good thing, some ways it's a bad thing. It'd be a bad thing if you had to go up a lot of hills, but then we don't. Oh, I think our blasted pony truck has derailed again. Why does our pony truck keep derailing? That's not a good sign. Oh, for goodness sake. It's very hard, because I'm operating the camera with my right hand, so then I have to do everything else left-handed. I don't know. I really don't know. That pony truck seems to have a bit of a tendency to become derailed. I don't know why. You can see where, not there. I would suspect the back point here. I'm slowing him right down here. This is where I would suspect, because everything tends to wobble a bit going over that point. Yeah. Oh dear, dearie me. Taking this, by the way, is only 25% power. I'm going to put it up to 30% power. he doesn't like... Yeah, see, he really wobbles. That point's been a constant problem, that point that goes to the turntable branch. I did a lot of work on it trying to make it smoother, but it's still not as smooth as it should be. We're getting lots and lots of clock chiming now. Well, 30%, about just under 30%. Well, he's running, not badly, except for a tendency for his pony truck to derail on points. I haven't quite figured out which one, but I suspect that one. If I run him slowly like this, I can get away with it. I suspect if I run him faster again, he's going to derail, probably. Yeah. Take him off that point. I mean, otherwise he runs quite nicely. Berserk amount of clock chiming now. Whoops. So I'm reasonably pleased with him. This is, where's the other one? There's the other one, and that's the black one that I was servicing before. And now there's, where is he? There's the red one. Good Lord. Here's the Dublo body back from its first coat of spray painting. I did start to remove the masking from the rails, and then I noticed that the black paint hadn't covered very well, and the BR markings were still showing through. So I took the body down for another coat of spray black. And here it is after that second coat of black. I removed all of the masking from the safety valves, the handrails, and the buffer beams. Here's the other side after the removal of the masking. I wasn't quite sure how to mark this. The Dublo Wrenn 264 tank is actually modelled on the British Railways standard Class 4MT tank, but that was based on a long line of LMS 264 tank engine designs from Fowler through Stanier to Fairburn. I basically decided to pretend that this was a Stanier 264 tank, as those were closer in shape to the BR4MT than the original Fowler design, whilst dating from the 1930s and so fitting my pre-war LMS prototype. This is a Stanier 264 tank built in Scotland in 1934, which is seen as preserved in the National Railway Museum in York. The shape of the Stanier design is pretty close to the Dublo Wrenn model. This loco has LMS letters and numbers in gold, but then it was built in Scotland in 1934. It's also lined, but I wanted to go with an unlined black livery. Here's a picture of a Stanier 264 tank built at Crewe in 1936 and finished in unlined black livery. Being finished at Crewe, the letters and numbers would be in Crewe straw. I decided to use this one as the basis for my black body. I had a new set of HMRS press-fix decals for Crewe straw LMS letters and numbers. It was just as well that I had a new set, as though there were lots of unused decals left in my previous set, I had used up all of the large straw LMS letters for locos from that set. I put a strip of masking tape along the side of the body. This wasn't actually to mask anything, but just to give me a straight line to guide me when applying the decals, as I struggle with keeping things level and even. I set the line of this tape based on where the letters and numbers were in the picture of the loco at Crewe. I applied large straw LMS letters just above the tape line, and then wetted the backing tissue with water and removed it. Then I applied each digit of the number, again just above the tape line, and keeping the spacing as even as I could. Honestly, I find it really difficult to make a good job of applying numbers digit by digit. Here's that side with the tape removed. Now I did the same thing on the other side, using the same piece of tape to make my baseline. and applying the decals for the letters and the numbers just above that line. And here's that side with the tape removed. After letting the decals dry, I applied a coat of matte acrylic fixative to protect the decals and to tone down the gloss of the finish a bit. I fitted the Wren chassis into the newly finished black body. And here is that model on the bench after assembly. Here's the other side of that finished model. So now to finish this 2-rail model running on my main Hornby layout. Okay, so here I guess is the final chapter in this saga for now. This is the Wren 2-rail chassis with a black LMS body put on it. So this is the third of these 264 tanks I've been playing around with, and he's now got an LMS. It was originally a Dublo British Railways body, which I've made into a black LMS body. So we'll give him some power, and off he goes. It's about 50%. Sorry. Trying to do two things at once, as always here. There you go. So that's the Wren chassis, which was serviced by Nigel of British Model Trains, but now came with a red LMS body on. I moved the red LMS body to the 3-rail Dublo one, because I didn't have a red one on Dublo. I've got another one that's red in 2-rail Wren. And there we go. There's the Wren 2-rail one, rebodied and repainted and decalled as an LMS. Yes, I know it's really modelled on a British Railways Class 4 MT, but it's very similar to the Scania Mogul. So I'm sort of pretending it's a Scania Mogul. I've used the number of a Scania Mogul that was built in 1936 at Crewe. So there you go. That's the end of this little saga for now.